Hello and welcome to Diplomatic Encounters Relations with the States. And in today's show, we have with us His Excellency Garvin Nicholas, the High Commissioner to London. What a way to begin the year 2012 and to discuss what he has been doing in London over the past year since his appointment, and to look towards the future, particularly 2012, when Trinidad and Tobago will be celebrating 50 years as an independent nation. Excellency, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Gideon.
I'm sure it's a great feeling being back home, especially having come from a cold London.
Well, it's always good to be in Trinidad and Tobago, and especially around Christmas time, when my family are here. And last Christmas I spent in England, having just picked up my posting, so that being here this time is indeed very special.
But you studied in England, didn't you?
Yes, in fact, I'm very comfortable with the UK. I have a large professional network in the United Kingdom, having studied there and called to the bar there. So that I enjoy being there, and it certainly makes my diplomatic posting far easier. But home is home.
Yes, indeed. How different a play field is it from the civilian life that you enjoyed in a professional capacity and now as a diplomat?
It's indeed very different. In my civilian life, I could do as I please and not have a care in the world except to pursue my own goals. As a diplomat, of course, I am the face of the country, and everything I do is scrutinized. And I think it is extremely important that as a diplomat representing Trinidad and Tobago, that we put a face forward that is indeed first world, that is progressive, that is consistent with international diplomacy, and not only takes Trinidad and Tobago forward, but the entire Caribbean.
So apart from London, the jurisdiction to which you belong in terms of representation spreads how far within Europe?
I spread to Denmark, to Finland, to Sweden, to Norway, to Germany. So in addition to the United Kingdom, there are 5 other countries that I represent.
How are you dealing with the language problems?
You know, it's interesting because most of the countries in Europe tend to speak English very fluently. When I went to Denmark recently to present my credentials to Her Majesty the Queen there, I was speaking with the officers of the Foreign Service there and remarking that I need to learn the language. And they told me, don't waste my time, they all speak English.
Yes.
And I think that will be the consistent message throughout my European countries.
It was a culture shock for me when I studied in Holland, and I heard the level to which the language of English is spoken, almost Oxonian.
Indeed, indeed. I think that as of right, the Europeans speak English, knowing full well that everything is integrated. And I think the second language, or second most popular language in Europe would be French. But English is certainly quite dominant.
Yes. Sitting where you are now, 1 week ago, was His Excellency Chandradat Singh, and we were talking about the Prime Minister's state visit to India. He talked about his mission and how he is fulfilling that. What about you?
Well, my mission in the United Kingdom is, of course, to promote trade, to promote tourism, to ensure that our culture is integrated and monetized, and to look after the diaspora that live there. Quite a considerable diaspora. I'm told that we have about 30,000 people in the United Kingdom. And certainly in the other areas where you would think that there are no Trinidadians, there are quite large pockets. So I have set about analyzing where we were 1 year ago. Of course, the feedback that I had received, some was positive, some was not so positive. And I sought to correct the not so positive feedback and certainly move us forward. One of the challenges seemed to have been the interaction with staff and the service that the diaspora were perceiving that they were receiving. And it is important to me that we provide a very, very high level of service to the diaspora. My first interaction with my staff was to inform them that we are indeed a family, and to be seen as the Trinidadian family for the Trinidadians I say Trinidadians, but Trinidad and Tobagonians.
Indeed.
Living in the United Kingdom, coming to the mission, they should always feel at home. They should always feel that we are embracing them and that we are doing whatever we can to ensure that their needs are being met.
And I know that there has been a very concerted effort on the part of the Prime Minister to ensure that, because wherever she has been for the year 2011, she's made it a point to interact with the diaspora, on the understanding that the diaspora is now being called upon to play a greater role as representatives of Trinidad and Tobago, and quite naturally to do the business deals.
Of course, and we have a lot of very, very talented people out in the United Kingdom and in Europe. People are heading all sorts of companies. They're in very influential positions. There are people in the House of Lords. There are people who with Trinidadian background and Trinidad and Tobagonian background who are in the House of Commons, in very senior academic positions in universities. And I try as much as possible to tap that resource, which has gone mostly untapped over the years, and see how best we could bring it back to assist in the development of Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, hitherto, it was just a question of having representation in the various capitals of the world. But the mantra of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Communications, and by extension the government of Trinidad and Tobago, is trade diplomacy. You began talking about that initiative. Where are we in terms of some of the concrete things you've been able to establish over the past year?
Well, the most concrete of all would be the Garvin project. This is a project that I have been working on for the last 6 months. Managed to get the key players introduced from Garvin to the key players of the government. And this is a project that is potentially yielding about 2.4 billion TT dollars in investment, the creation of about 150 jobs, should that project go ahead. But this is just one project. Of course, I've been interacting on a continuous basis with the senior executives of British Gas, British Petroleum, who continue to be very interested in the development of Trinidad and Tobago, their gas fields, their oil fields, and looking towards other players like Centrica. So those are the established ones. I'm looking again towards bringing in new investment by way of tourism and sport tourism in particular. There's a golf project that I signed an MOU for just before coming to Trinidad, which is something I've been working with the TDC on. I may get the Ministry of Sport involved, but this is really a tourism project. Looking at, I went across to Tobago to look at the infrastructure with regards to hotel and golf course to facilitate such a venture, which will put Trinidad and Tobago very much on the sporting map. And there are a number of other similar type initiatives that I'm looking towards, as well as other investment in infrastructure, whether it be hotel, whether it be housing, because there is a lot of very keen interest in Europe and in surrounding areas.
Indeed. And we're on the brows of the Olympics. I'm sure there will be opportunities for the entertainment industry here in Trinidad and Tobago. Have you explored these?
Absolutely. In fact, one of the two major projects that I have carded for 2012 to take advantage both of our 50th anniversary as well as the Olympics and the number of people coming to London and the UK in general are a carnival in Cardiff that is strictly along the lines of a Trinidad and Tobago carnival that would give exposure to our mass makers, to our musicians, etc. And then I have a Trinidad and Tobago village over a 5-week period that is to showcase our cultural expressions, music, dance, poetry, film, and then bring them through the door and allow for our companies to showcase their products so that it will become an investment initiative as well as a cultural and tourism expression.
We were told that there is a carnival in Goa, and I met an Indian official a few years ago, and he was saying it would be wonderful to get the mass people from Trinidad and Tobago to go to Goa and participate in the carnival. But I was told also that from London there are Trinbagonians who are, by their own instincts, making a push for the carnival in Goa.
Well, what has happened in London is that, of course, Trinidad and Tobago were key in influencing the Notting Hill Carnival. There are a number of other interests that have taken or lobbying for the carnival. I know that Brazil wants to play a big part in the Notting Hill Carnival, for instance. What I have been trying to do is to ensure that the Trinidad and Tobago influence stays there and stays very strong. To that extent, I held the reception for the Notting Hill launch this year. Again, putting it back on Trinidad and Tobago soil.
This year meaning 2011.
Yes, and we'll continue to push for it in 2012 and support the pan men, the calypsonians, the masqueraders as they push towards Europe, Japan, Africa, India, because it's a great launching pad. And that is why I see the carnival in Cardiff. If that becomes a very Trinidad and Tobago affair, then it even creates greater potential for those Trinidadians and Tobagonians living in the UK, as well as for those living in Trinidad and Tobago.
These discussions go very quickly, as you would appreciate.
Yes.
We've got 15 minutes and we are already getting the wind-up signal. I want to touch very, very quickly and very briefly on celebrations to mark Trinidad and Tobago's 50th anniversary of independence.
What I intend to do is to have a grand white tie affair where we will honor those who have contributed to the UK, Trinidadian and Tobagonians who would have contributed to the UK over the last 50 years and who would have distinguished themselves. Thus bring everyone together. And there are a number of other things that you will hear about over the next couple months. And I certainly hope that I will have more time to spend with you, Gideon, because I enjoyed this 15 minutes very much.
Certainly, and talking about honoring Trinbagonians who've contributed to British society, I would imagine on top of the list is Sir Trevor MacDonald.
Well, indeed. He certainly has done quite a lot for himself. People like Baroness Fluella Benjamin.
Yes.
She continues to distinguish herself, and she continues to fly the Trinidad and Tobago flag very, very highly.
Oh, she was almost in tears when she appeared on stage with the Prime Minister about the Children's Fund.
Yes, indeed. So what we tend to look for are those who not only distinguish themselves but also continue to fly the Trinidad and Tobago flag, who have not left us behind and continues to really push us forward.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gideon.
Diplomatic Encounters, talking with His Excellency Garvin Nicholas, High Commissioner to London. I would like on his behalf to take the opportunity to wish you a very productive 2012.